Oh, Eric heard on Twitter.
Move this on this screen.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Tom's Hardware podcast for today, October 5th, 2021. I just had to turn on the Facebook version because we couldn't set it up yesterday for reasons everybody on Earth knows. But we are joined, as always, by Associate Editor Les Pounder, Raspberry Pi expert Ash Hill, and our very special guests from Tiny Circuits. Can you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about Tiny Circuits?
Yeah, so I'm Ken Burns. I'm the president of Tiny Circuits, and
I'm Ben, main engineer.
Yeah, and so we're a company that specializes in designing and manufacturing small electronics, and mostly Arduino type stuff, what we've done in the past, but we came out with a new product that we just launched last week called the Thumby that uses the new Raspberry Pi RP2040 processor.
Wow. So do you have a Thumby to show everyone, get a sense of what it looks like?
So hopefully this picks up well on our camera here, but that is the Thumby. As you see, here's my thumb right behind it. It's roughly the same size. So it's a very small looking gaming console that actually works. And so it has a small OLED screen on it, which you can't really see very well on camera because it is really small. But it's fully functional, and it, like I said, uses the RP2040, and with that, it's way overkill for what we need for this, but it allows us to run Python code very easily, and so we actually have like a web interface that you can plug in to your computer and just use like Chrome to edit your Python programs and create your own little games.
Wow. So are you going to be first of all, you said edit your Python program. So are folks going to be programming their own game?
Yeah, it's really designed for people that want to create their own games or people that just want to play games. So, I mean, due to the size, it's kind of a novelty. You can put this in your keychain, carry it around with you. It comes with 5 games already loaded on it. And we expected a lot more to be developed too from an active community. And then if you want to, you can learn how to program, or just, if you're already a programmer, just program your own games and create really whatever you want on this little guy.
What type of library do you use for that gaming?
I'll turn this over to Ben because he's more the expert on that. So.
Right now, kind of everything's just custom written for it. So we're starting a really small kind of library, sort of just kind of an API to just write bitmaps to the screen, that kind of thing. So games are really simple because of the low resolution. The screen's only 72 by 40 pixels. So a lot of that stuff tends to remain really simple, basically.
Right. So what are some of the best games that you've seen so far?
Well, all the games so far have been developed in-house. So we've... like I said, we just launched a Kickstarter last week, so it's not available to the general public. We did send out about 30 or 40 samples to different people. Some of those, including Les, has one. Some early things to get some hype around it, and then a few developers. And so the current games we have for it are, again, pretty simple. So there's a little adventure dungeon type game. There's a snake variant, a little asteroids type game, things like that.
Neat.
Mm-hmm.
I like the dinosaur one, Tiny Soul.
Good.
And this is Pounder likes Tiny Tetris, or Tris, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't call it Tetris.
No doubt. So do you see this primarily as kind of a learning tool where kids can learn a bit about programming?
Yeah, that's one angle we want to take with it because, again, due to its constraints, it would be a lot simpler to program than, there's plenty of other little color, open source game type things you can program. And we've actually made a number ourselves, little arcades and whatnot. But the barrier to programming those have always been relatively high. So this is really easily done. So it takes a lot of the complexities away from programming. Because, again, like I said, you just plug it in your computer. It pops up and you can see all the files on your little Thumby and edit them. And so within a minute or two, you can edit the text and just download it and see, I modified the game somewhat. And so it kind of takes away some of those things where you got to install tool chains and go through all this headache of getting to the point where you actually start to create your game. So we'd love to see more kids start playing with it. And frankly, due to its size, it seems like kids are instantly attracted to it when we show it off. We actually went to a game event this weekend, and we kind of showed it off to the crowd here in Ohio. And people obviously said, well, this is too tiny. I can't play it. It's crazy. But again, it's kind of the novelty form factor. And then kids loved it. And so I think just a good way to attract them into programming themselves through a game.
Are you going to have any kinds of tutorials or things like that to help folks get started programming for it?
Definitely. So the programming angle, again, due to its ease, we already have a tutorial online for kind of some of the early people. And then really look to expand that through videos and more tutorial content. And then potentially even tailor like certain things for younger kids to intro to programming. And so maybe some custom curriculum around that, how to use it in a classroom, or, how do you, create your own game at home.
Wow. Really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So what, so Russell asks, will any GPIO be accessible on it?
Yeah, there's actually going to be one kind of available through the 5th pin of the micro USB connector, which we're going to have cables to kind of break that out.
And again, there is USB, so in the very bottom of it. So that's how you charge it. That's also how you program it. Theoretically, you could run USB host on it and connect to external peripherals. We don't have that currently working. And again, maybe that's a community thing because there's
definitely some hurdles.
Hurdles to doing that, but it's definitely feasible. And if you look at other RP2040 projects out there, the part can support it. And again, it's completely open source, so people may just do that.
Speaking of RP2040, is this a custom board that's inside of it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We actually have.
So
yeah.
So here is the board kind of broken out. It's hard to see, but there's the little OLED screen soldered to it. Back here is, again, it's hard to see, but there's the RP2040 soldered on there. There's actually a little small piezo buzzer, the battery kind of hanging at the bottom. So that whole board is, Ben will know, but it's a little over 30 millimeters long. So just a little over an inch here in the US. And then here's kind of a panel of them that we designed, and we actually manufacture everything here locally in our factory in Ohio. But here's the Thumby board, and here's a Pico that runs the.
Wow.
Sacrificial Pico by the look of it. You're taking the chip off.
Yeah.
That's how we made the prototypes. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you've ever heard, there's a semiconductor shortage, and so we might have bought some Picos and did our early prototypes that way. You gotta do what you gotta do, right? So.
That's great. So what type of battery are you using in it, and what type of battery life are you getting?
So it's a tiny lithium polymer battery. So it's a 40 milliamp hour. So if we can hopefully show that. There it is. So it's 40 milliamp hours. So we're actually by default underclocking the RP2040 to get a little bit more battery life. But it's about 2 hours with the screen on.
And if you can play this for 2 hours, I'd be impressed.
Fair.
And you can run off the USB. People have asked that too, so you could just leave it plugged in your computer, and if you're developing something.
Talking USB, I've noticed a feature on the Kickstarter page. If you've got 2 of these, you can have 2-player games via USB cable. Is that right?
Yeah, that was kind of a ridiculous thing we decided to add in. So kind of like an old link cable between 2 old-time consoles, you can do that. And so we've worked on a game, basically a little Pong game you can play back and forth. But again, I'm kind of curious to see what people create with that. So we're going to have a few games at start, but basically it's a custom, basically USB on the go cable. So 2 micro Bs that we're offering, and you can connect 2 Thumbys together.
That'd be cool. How long until Doom's ported to it, do you reckon?
Probably not long.
Yeah.
We're actually looking at that today.
Neat. So here's putting up for folks the Kickstarter address. So it looks like according to your Kickstarter, you guys have way exceeded your goal.
Right.
Does that mean it's a sure thing that these will be shipping out to backers?
Oh yeah. So we've done 4 Kickstarters before now, and we've been kind of down this path before. So we have very low risk from our standpoint in terms of making these. And like I said, we actually do have like the plastic injection mold done for these. The design is done. So we shipped out some samples, so Les has one. Really, the one constraint with shipping out in large volume is parts availability due to semiconductors. And so we've been working with the folks over at Raspberry Pi. So we've been able to get some processors here earlier. So we'll be shipping out. We have 50 early birds that we basically have all the parts in house to do that. So we're guaranteeing we're going to ship those in November of this year. And then potentially we'd like to do more, but we're kind of hedging our bets and saying it's in February, really due to parts availability. Other supply chain things, like I said, we actually have our own surface mount assembly line here in our factory. And so we actually make everything ourselves. And so we really have a good handle on what's needed to make these. And so we're making them all in house. And like I said, you see on the Kickstarter, there's a few thousand backers already. We went over $100,000 US a few days ago. And so it keeps on going, and we're only 1 week in. So hopefully we keep making a bunch of these.
Wow, great.
Mm-hmm.
Russell says, wonder if I don't totally understand this question, I'll be honest. What if a Me Crisp Stellaris 4th Pico version would run on it? Can't see why not.
But, I mean, one thing on that is like anything that runs on the Raspberry Pi Pico will pretty much run on here. So it's really the screen resolution that's
including Doom.
Well, again, yeah, we just found that RP2040 Doom port.
Somebody has an RP2040 Doom port. I mean, that's one of the most common things is, does it run Doom? It's like, theoretically it will. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, I imagine that'd be hard on that would be hard to do with that size of a screen.
Yeah, I don't know if you can play it, but theoretically it's running it. I don't know what it's going to display. But
so you said, so does it have a menu for choosing games, or do you have to load on just one game at a time?
Yeah, it has a menu, and so it actually has 2 megs of flash, and so this is going to be really hard to see. If you go to the Kickstarter page, we have a better animation, but if you go down the D-pad, and this is really not going well. It's probably not going to come through, but there's a little menu, so I can scroll down, and this is really showing poorly with the sunlight. But there's different games loaded in there, and then you hit the start button, and it loads it up. And again, when you plug it into your computer, since they're all Python games, you'll actually see basically a file directory that loads up, and you'll see all the games and the Python files that you can just click on and start editing, and then resave to the Thumby. And then if you're not a Python person, you can certainly program it using like Arduino IDE or just straight, have your straight C tool chain to program it.
When you say you're going to see the Python files right away, do you mean is it running CircuitPython or regular MicroPython?
It runs regular MicroPython right now. So when Ken says that would be in our like web browser that just pops up right away.
Got it. Yeah, because MicroPython, to my knowledge, still doesn't give you a drive on your computer, but CircuitPython does.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that is really cool. So where and when did you guys get the idea to create this?
It's this guy. He came up with a pet project, 5-6 years ago?
Yeah, it was a long time ago that we kind of found that really small OLED screen and just wanted to make, see what the smallest thing we can make around it is. So it just kind of kept growing from there. So the early versions were pretty expensive and really difficult to make. So it's kind of been a long time in the making to get it to a point where we can kind of produce it.
Yeah, so Ben showed off like just his own custom little board prototype maybe 5-6 years ago at some maker fairs in the US. And everybody's like, oh, that's really cool. You should make that. And we're like, oh, okay. And it's always on the back burner. And then earlier this year, we decided, okay, let's take the jump and invest in injection molded tooling and actually get to the next step. And RP2040 just came out. We're like, well, this is way, way overkill, but it's a super cheap processor. And it lets it make it much easier to program versus like we were using AT Tiny. So it's actually cheaper than AT Tiny in certain cases. And it just makes it much more powerful to program.
Yeah, the new 2040 kind of made it like a fun project that's pretty usable in the sense of programming it.
So how does this compare in terms of power to some of the other projects that you've done? For example, I know you have a tiny arcade DIY kit. Does that provide more flexibility than this?
No. So that's a little bit of an older product that we designed maybe 5 years ago. So it's based on the SAM-D21. So it's another ARM microcontroller, but it's much less powerful than the RP2040. So it's really a little bit tough to drive the color display on that.
So this is your first RP2040 project, correct?
Oh yeah.
Do you like it? Do you think you'll be expanding and doing more RP2040 projects after this?
Yep. Basically is the answer to that. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun to design a board around it, just really easy. That kind of thing. So
I mean, we've used a lot of ARM processors in the past, and so we're familiar with it from that standpoint. But again, RP2040 just is feature packed, and the price can't be beat. I don't want to keep harking on that, but it's true. So, a $1 US microcontroller is pretty insane for what it gives you. Like the SAMDs that we use in other things are typically $2 to $3 and much less powerful. And so it's like, why wouldn't we keep using the RP2040 in future projects?
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a question from Benjamin, who has a wonderful icon. Hi, friends. Question: any thoughts on using those two little FOSS start select buttons for anything, or are they just cosmetic?
Just cosmetic, unfortunately. That's kind of a cost reduction thing. At some point, they did function, but
yeah, in terms of, I mean, maybe it doesn't. You can't really convey just how small some of these things are. So those normal red buttons,
those are 2.8 millimeters in diameter, I think. So the start and select buttons are about.
Yeah, I don't know if you can even see them on here through my fuzzy camera, but
yeah, a little bit.
They're insanely tiny. And realistically, it's like you could do something, but it's already a pretty small, constrained little game system.
Yeah, that is just really really amazing. How much for those who haven't visited the Kickstarter page yet? How much are these going to cost if folks want to try and order one? And do you think they'll be able to get them in time for the holidays?
Yeah, so we're basically our base reward level is $19 US. So we wanted to get it under 20, and that's made here in our facility in Ohio too. So it's really, in our opinion, a low price point for what it is. And then we've got like a special edition that's in gold, and you get your like a special package. It comes in your name and the credits and stuff, and then multiplayer packs. So it kind of goes up to $100 for like multiplayer packs where you get a bunch of them bundled. But $19 is the base. In terms of getting it by the holidays, we did do an early bird that we sold out, I think, in 2 minutes of 50. And so we had those at a discounted price of $9 US. Those are basically guaranteeing that you'll get by the holidays because, again, we have the parts. We'd like to do more, but a lot of it comes down to just getting more RP2040s and other componentry. We do have like a few thousand screens and batteries and things like that. The injection molding company is actually here local to us, and so we've worked pretty close with them, so we don't really have a fear of getting the plastic in time. It really comes down to semiconductors. We're not unique in that, the pain of getting parts in, and so it really comes down to just being able to get thousands of parts to make them up.
Oh, fantastic! Are there any other projects on the horizon that we should know about?
Well, we're always working on lots of cool things. So we've got one thing we came out with a little while ago is this little tiny television set that's actually very popular. So this is kind of a 3D printed enclosure that you can paint yourself to kind of like a little model kit. You can load your own videos on here. You can actually have I don't know if you can hear that, but there's different little videos. So it's actually color, and we actually have a remote control for it too. So a tiny remote that you can change the channel with. So this has been really popular with people loading their own videos, cat videos or whatnot, or putting their own dollhouse, or even just using a model. And so we came out with this about a year ago. We're thinking about revamping this, so maybe with RP2040, we'd like to get the cost down. We have a potentially smaller version of this. And then other things we're working on, we actually received a grant from the U.S. government to do basically like a kids Fitbit type project. And so we're using the RP2040 in that as well. So it's basically almost like a Tamagotchi. So like a seventh grader would carry this around with them for the day. And to keep track of different fitness things, you'd enter your food stuff in and kind of take care of your avatar that's on the screen. So that has, we're using a 240 by 240 color touch screen in this little handheld device. And we're making a few hundred of those right now and running it in conjunction with 8 schools here in Ohio, where we'd be basically taking kids through a health curriculum, and they carry this around with them and hopefully learn healthy eating and exercise habits. And assuming that goes well, we'd apply for like a phase 2 grant from the government, from National Institutes of Health. And then ideally we'd have this cool little STEM product that we could sell, and potentially even you could code games for it and stuff too. And so again, we're using the RP2040 in it because it's perfect. It dries the screen great. And so it's a cool little project that we're kind of working on. It's not well publicized, but it's hopefully that'll come out next year sometime.
Wow, great. Speaking of interesting projects, Les, you have been playing with one of these, and you've been looking at another new gaming handheld based on RP2040, correct?
Indeed, yes. Today I've spent many hours working, obviously, with these RP2040 based games console. So I'm going to go to what's normally the overhead camera, but today it's to the side camera so you can see it. There is my Thumby, and it's running some code that I wrote this afternoon. Lovely little thing, this. Little is the only word I can use. Tiny would be better, I'd say. Also, I've got to take my glasses off to see the screen because I'm that old. Just to show what's on the screen right now. So going up and down, see that it's just Tom's Hardware, the PyCast, which I did in some Python code. This is the web editor, which I'm guessing uses web USB so I can communicate with Thumby. Is that right?
Yeah, web USB, yep.
Cool. I got something right. There we go. Really easy MicroPython library. If you've used MicroPython on a Pico before, or you've used it on another device, you're at home with this. No problem at all. Plug it in and away you go. Great fun. But I've also got another little board. And this is where I'm going to have to be very careful to bring it over and keep it in shot, because this is a fixed focus camera. Here is Pico System from Pimoroni. This is very awkward to show on camera right now, but we'll have a go. This is about $80 in price. It came out today in the UK. And this is an RP2040 base board to make your own games. So I programmed something very simple. So I'm still learning the SDK. I'm using circuit. Yeah.
That's all you needed to program, isn't it?
That's it. And I've just got button import to react to me pressing, and just as our logo, backwards and forwards, different colors. That's in CircuitPython using display IO and the load image module, I think it is. That was really simple to do. It's about 25 lines of code. You can put games on this, and it's what it's made for. And I know that the release game for this is a block version that's very similar to Mario, but it's a bit more graphic in that when you squash people, they really do a squash. But you're a little block, so it's all fine because the blocks don't hurt or anything. It's fine. This is programmed in whatever you want to program it in. So C, CircuitPython, MicroPython, Lua, whatever you fancy, you can program it. And it's just really easy. USB-C interface. Plug it into your computer, press the power button and X at the same time, and it loads up as a USB drive. Put on whatever firmware you want. So it could be a game in UF2 format, or it could be whatever firmware you want to use. Load up Visual Studio, and Pimoroni's got a guide on how to do that. And you can start writing games for this. And that's what I'm going to be doing this week, making something out of this. And then hopefully showing it off in the review. Hopefully it works. But yeah, great fun. And you get a full color screen, speakers, and it's aluminium. Or aluminum, I should be saying, for America. Here we go. So it's aluminum, nice case, it feels quite weighty as well. That's always nice because sometimes you think for something like this, a handheld unit, it's cheap plastic. I've got a few AliExpress cheap plastic games consoles that play console games, and they work all right. But this is totally different.
Wow. So that's fantastic. Could be a fantastic companion to your Thumby when you get bored of playing on the keychain or just want a little bit more screen real estate. You can have that. You can have that in your pocket. Ash, I know you. I know you have been looking at the best projects of the month. What are some of the favorites you've seen?
Yeah, so for anyone who's not too familiar with what we do here, we feature Raspberry Pi projects all week long at Tom's Hardware, and once a month I'll curate a list of the top 10. And I think all of the projects that we cover are fantastic, but these are the 10 that stood out to us the most. So what I want to do today is just share a couple of them with you, some of the highlights from this month's list. You could find the complete list at tomshardware.com, but first let's take a closer look at a few of these. Hold on, I've got Manjaro up and I'm losing my windows. There we go. Can you guys see the projects list?
Yep.
Okay, great. So the first one I wanted to show you guys was this really cool Raspberry Pi Game Boy Color, like cosplay, I guess you would call it. It's something that you wear, so that felt very Halloween themed. It's quite the opposite of the Thumby. They blew a Game Boy up instead of making it smaller, and this one is for the Game Boy Color. But this guy's got a Raspberry Pi inside a suit made out of cardboard. It looks like a Game Boy Color, and he has a monitor strapped to the front, and people can actually walk up and play this Game Boy Color in real time. So it's not just something that looks cool, it's something that is totally cool and playable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was
cool.
I had to show that one off. And the other one leads me to this next one here. This is really festive, but also very musical. It's string lights that are controlled by a digital keyboard. And every time you hit a note, the next light will change colors, and a certain color is set to each note. So you can play a song and it makes a rainbow of colors appear. And I thought that was just a little bit fun for anyone who wanted to tinker around with something that might look cool in your window during Halloween. Maybe you can, if you can play some spooky songs outside, people can have a light show while they go by. I'm not sure how many of you played piano, but if you do, that one's a cool one to check out. But lastly, I wanted to share this really creepy, if you've played Portal, it's a turret camera, but thankfully it's a lot less lethal and it's not equipped to be an offensive asset, but rather it's just a motion sensitive camera. So you can set this up and it still adds security to your home. You can keep an eye on things, but if you've played Portal, you know these guys, you don't want to mess with them. You don't want them to see you. So what do you guys think? Do any of these inspire you guys to make a cool project for Halloween?
Game Boy.
This one.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking.
That's a lot of fun.
No. Less
You're halfway there.
that is really cool. How about you guys, Ben and Ken? Are you doing any Halloween projects?
They make you a Thumby outfit, maybe. It reminds me, actually, maybe 15 years ago, I actually dressed up. You saw this, right, in my basement. I dressed up as a 74 series logic device, so a dip package, and had my head out of it as like a TI 74 AND gate. So it kind of reminds me of that. It's actually fully functional too, but I like the Game Boy. That's pretty cool.
I have a dream to someday, but I just don't have the artistic skill to have me and my family dress up as different Raspberry Pis. Like for Halloween, like maybe I'll be a 4, and like my son could be like a 0, and my daughter, who's 2, could be like a Pico or something like that. You know, and I could put on, and he and I could put on hats that like had sensors on them or whatever. But
Hats.
yes, exactly. In the literal and figurative sense of the term at once. But I guess we won't get to do it this year. Although I am supposed to be going to a Halloween party where everybody dresses up as Alice in Wonderland characters, and I'm going to be the Mad Hatter, and I'm going to take these goggles here, which I got from Adafruit, and the somewhere over here I have to hot glue them in. I have a bunch of NeoPixel rings that will NeoPixel, so I'll put it up like that, and I'll see if I can have like a button or something to change the pattern or something cool that besides it doing a pattern. So
Make it say tea time.
yeah.
Hey, but what are you going to control it with? What board?
Oh, so the one they recommend on Adafruit is the Trinket M0, which I have on it now. But I've thought about changing that to a small RP2040 board. None of them is as small as the Trinket, though. The Trinket is really small. But I could maybe use like the tiny RP2040 Tiny or something like that, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, I'd also like glue a Wi-Fi thing and that glue the airlift card in there or something and be able to control it from my phone or something. But who knows?
Actually, thinking out loud with Thumby, you've got one GPIO pin that's broken out via USB.
Yeah.
Right.
If that pin can do PWM, we've got NeoPixels.
Yeah, I think that's definitely possible.
Yeah.
You have Thumby on the top of your hat there. Just press the button to turn the lights on.
Yeah.
Change the sequence.
There you go. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And I especially want to thank Ken and Ben for joining us and showing off this amazing project, which you can find on Kickstarter. Looking for Thumby, and at this address I have on the screen. If you can copy that whole URL down, so definitely check that out. As always, we are here on Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. UK time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. I always say the UK time first because we have so many people joining us from the UK, and you can always find us on YouTube. We will see you all next week. Bye, everyone.